So the before lecture chant, I think it's on the first page of the chant book. And
Unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Having it to see and listen to remember and accept, I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's words.
I always love that phrase, I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's words. And say, I vow to gobble it up, I vow to be gobbled up by it, I vow to, it's to taste, it's something, well, it's certainly embodied, it's subtle. Sometimes the Dharma is also called the fragrance of the Dharma. I mean, to me, it really speaks to a way of, I suppose, refuge, a flying home and of a way to be in the world. Maybe the world as it is these days, because there is so much fear and anxiety, I think. It tends to bring up, the word that comes to me is kind of grosser forms of response. It's like you want to protect yourself or you want to get away from it, or, but what is this? What is it to taste the truth? What is it to be here? To be here. Open, receptive, present, right in the midst of the divisions, right in the midst of the ancient twisted karma. It's why one of my most favorite, it's all my ancient twisted karma from beginningless greed, hate, and delusion, born through body, speech, and mind, I now fully avow. It's like, this is it. Here we are. It's always been here in one form or another, and it's in our own minds and hearts, these divisions, these setting things up. And we're in a time where we get to see how dangerous it is and how much harm can be done. So then bodhisattvas, I vow to taste the truth. I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's words. I vow to taste the truth of love. I vow to taste and be the truth of interconnection, of the many and the one. I'm so glad we're doing the Sandokai. So that's I want to do some wandering around in Zen stories today. I think it's, ancestors are really important. Every tradition, every family, ancestors is. We're standing on the shoulders and the ground of ancestors. And Zen has Zen stories that can often seem strange or other, or the early ones are, at least the ones that were passed down to us, are all usually about men, exchanges between men. Now there are more that have come forward that have always been there, of course. But for today, the ones we're going to wander in, the most traditional ones, it seems to me, I was thinking, we call ourselves Dharma Heart Zen. We should know some of these stories. We should know the ground and then turn them and let them turn in us. Because to taste them and to let them come alive through us is for them to be alive and manifest in this time through each one of us. Which means the stories will change, but the heart goes all the way through. That's our work. And I'm going to do a lot of referencing of Suzuki Roshi. Because I am constantly amazed by this person who came over and who gave us the teachings through Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, and through Not Always So, and in ways, I mean, they're not so easy to access, but they're also very, he really made them accessible. He took these ancient stories and this ancient tradition and I think looked out at everybody and said, how can I say this in a way that will help you? I really do think that's what he was trying to do, was to help us and to help the world. So that's the same, I hope, intention that I'm offering this talk today. Because I think we always need help, and I think we need a lot of help right now. And it's not just out there, it's in here. And because there is no inside, outside, how each one of us bees does affect the whole world. Don't ever think that's not so. Okay, so here, at the very end of the commentary on the Sandokai, there's a lecture that Suzuki Roshi gave in another situation. I wanted to start there. Here's a quote. The purpose of the study of Buddhism is to have a perfect understanding of things, to understand ourselves and what we are doing in our everyday life. Pretty fundamental, huh? Just to understand things, to understand ourselves and what we're doing in our everyday life. This is not highfalutin. This is just direct, how can I help? It is also necessary to understand why we suffer and why we have so much conflict in our society, in our families and within ourselves. In other words, to understand what is going on in the objective and subjective realms. If we see things as it is, and if we are aware of what we are doing and have a good understanding, we will know what we should do. I think it's a big question these days. What should we do? What are we going to do? All this awful stuff's going to happen. What are we going to do? Nobody knows. We'll find out. And the only way we're going to find out is by being present, by listening. And I realized Suzuki Roshi was teaching this during the 70s, which wasn't exactly a quiet and peaceful time. Forget that. So I think his advice is sound. We'll go on. So I'm going to start at the very beginning again and go back in the Sandokai. You may remember in his very first lecture that was, I think, Mel and others shortened into the phrase of things as it is. But it begins with the way has no northern and southern or southern ancestors. Remember that? We're going to chant it again today at lunch. The way has no northern or southern ancestors. Okay, so there's ancestors. There's northern, southern, there are ancestors. So in Buddhism, the first ancestor is Shakyamuni Buddha. Second ancestor is Bodhidharma. And then it goes on. By the time we get to the fifth ancestor, people are arguing over the right way. I'm shocked. It is divided into two schools, Southern and Northern, and there were sectarian disputes. The South was sudden enlightenment, immediate, just like a snap of a bamboo, and your mind just opens. Your heart just opens. A bird song, blue jay flies into your heart. Just sudden, each moment. Awaken, 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 awaken. It's always here, and there's no preparation, or that because you did it the longest, you're the one that's going to be the best. Whatever, you'll see these stories. These are actually great stories when you read. There's a lot of teachings in them. The other is the Northern, which was gradual. It's like you do this, then you do this, and then it. And then you'll get a little of this, and then once you get a little of this, you'll get a little more of this. And there were fierce debates. And now, surprisingly, what we see is that it's a little of both. Practice, you have to practice. And each moment is completely accessible and available. Each moment already is awakened. Sometimes we, for a moment, oh, I get it. And then, of course, it's gone. And then that's why we practice, It's like a swinging gate. So originally, the North was very popular and influential, but after several generations, its influence and identity as a separate school faded. I mean, we know this, right? It's like one thing comes forward, it pushes its way through, or it arises, and then it changes into something else. And we're just all scared right now because we think something terrible is going to happen, which probably is true. But it's going to change into something else, and we're going to be part of whatever that is. And so is everything else. So anyway, Wei Ning was the founder of the Southern School and became the sixth ancestor in our lineage. And a whole platform, sutra about Wei Ning. Sekito Kisen Shitao, who wrote the Sandokai, is the Dharma grandchild. So it gets passed from one person. It's like I'm the Dharma grandchild of Mel Weissman, because it was passed to Mel by Uitsu Suzuki Roshi, Suzuki Roshi to Uitsu, and then Uitsu to Mel, and then Mel to Norman Fisher, and then me, and then Norman Fisher to, I mean, there are bunches of it, but that's just sort of, there's whole charts of stuff, and it matters and it doesn't matter, but, family charts matter too, because, anyway. So he wrote the Sandokai at a formative time when Zen was coming forward in popularity. It was all happening right there. That's why the story of the sixth ancestor is so important. And why Zen through the sixth ancestor was first articulated through this koan that I'm about to tell you, and Sekito then Shitao in the Sandokai helps bring forward more and more the formation of Zen as Chan as we now know it. So here's a famous story about the division between the northern and southern schools, what they were arguing about. Wei Ning was practicing at the fifth ancestor's monastery. He hadn't been ordained yet. He was a lay practitioner. He was just working at the monastery, just a normal old person, not one of the important ones. The oldest student of the fifth ancestor, Shenji, who was to become the founder of the Northern School, was the head monk and a very experienced practitioner. So, probably you'd walk into a monastery and you'd go, who are the important people here? Who are the ones who know things? And you probably think the little guy off in the corner, like scrubbing the floor is, well, I mean, you probably wouldn't. I'm sure you'd think everybody was Buddha and equal, but we do look at things that way, right? That's why this is such a great story. So, the fifth ancestor was getting old and was looking for somebody to take over and run the monastery, to become his Dharma heir. And he assembled his students and asked them to write a poem to show their understanding. All of the monks thought Zhen Shui was the head guy. He was going to win anyway, so why even bother? Does this sound familiar? So Zhen Shui was the only one who wrote the poem and posted it. So you want to hear his poem?
Yeah.
Okay. The body is the Bodhi tree. The mind is like a bright mirror's stand. At all times we must strive to polish it and not let dust collect. So the body, our human body, is the Bodhi tree. It's the body of awakening. Original wisdom is like a clear mirror. But there's dust on that mirror, so it doesn't reflect things as clearly as it truly is. All sounds pretty reasonable, right? So we have to constantly polish the mirror to keep our mind clear. The dust of desire and ignorance of the world. And when we polish it, the mirror becomes bright and functions as wisdom. Now, Hui Ning, the little guy in the corner, couldn't read or write, but he heard the poem. He wasn't very well educated, and he went, I don't think that's the whole thing. Didn't seem complete or deep or full enough. So he asked one of the students to transcribe a poem for him, which he posted. This is a bold little guy. He posted next to Zhuangpi's Zhenji's poem, and his poem was, you want to hear his poem? Mm-hmm. This is great. See, these stories actually do have something to do with us. Bodhi originally has no tree. The bright mirror also has no stand. Fundamentally, there is not a single thing. Where could dust arise? Enlightenment has no tree, the mirror has no shape or form, there's no place for the dust to land, there's nothing we have to polish, and nothing we have to eliminate. Fifth ancestor thought that was pretty cool, and secretly actually gave Dharma transmission to Hui Ning, who I think I'm accurate about this, took all the trappings of that and headed for the hills because he knew everybody down in the monastery was probably going to off him because there was no competition or anything there. So Zhen Shui's teaching of gradual enlightenment. We become enlightened after a long period of practice of polishing the mirror, of practicing to eliminate delusion based on our ignorance, all my ancient twisted karma. Hui Ning's teaching of sudden enlightenment is just reality is just this. Realize reality beyond the discrimination between delusion and enlightenment. It's the 10,000 things coming forward to enlighten us. Don't get caught in things or thinking you don't have it and then you're going to get it. So Shi Tao wrote the Sandokai to help us find a middle way. They're both true, neither's true. You have to practice. But if you think you're, well, I'm going to tell you a few more stories to sort of back this up, because this is really the heart of this tradition. Here's an exchange with Sikito Shitao, who wrote the Sandokai. Someone said to him, "Who obtained the essential teaching of the sixth ancestor?" And Shitao replied, "He who understands Buddha Dharma obtained it." And then this monk who's questioning him says, "Did you obtain it? Do you have it? Did you get it?" And you know what his reply was? He said, "I don't understand Buddha Dharma." He wasn't going to get trapped in that one. I don't understand Buddha Dharma. I'm not going to make it into a thing and tell you that I obtained anything. And I can already tell by the way you're asking the question that you probably think there's something to obtain and you want to know how to get it, and I'm just not going to play that game with you. Not knowing is most intimate. Suzuki Roshi says, "Let your ears hear without trying to hear." Let your ears hear without trying to hear. Let your mind think without trying to think and without trying to stop it. More and more you will have this rhythm or strength as the power of practice. If you practice hard, you will be like a child. So what is the rhythm and strength of practice that's not gainable? You have to practice. I mean, this was Dogen's question all along, is if everything is shiny and pure and everybody's a Buddha, why do you have to practice? That was the question that drove him. And there is cause and effect, and you do have to practice. It's really important, but if you think you're going to do it to polish yourself up as a Buddha, you're already a Buddha and you're already missing the point. So just soften your ears, soften your heart, taste the truth. It's subtle and it's right here. So this took me to a Zen Mind Beginner's Mind. And Suzuki Roshi has a chapter called Polishing a Tile. He says, Zen stories or koans are very difficult to understand before you know what we are doing moment after moment. But if you know exactly what we are doing in each moment, you will not find koans so difficult. They actually aren't. I mean, when you get caught up in them, they're just weird. Sometimes they're just weird. I mean, I've wrestled and probably will continue to wrestle with koans and think they're stupid for the rest of my life. I've also done it enough to it's like, oh, what's here? What's the fragrance here? There are so many koans. I have often talked to you, this is Suzuki Roshi, about a frog. And each time everybody laughs. But a frog is very interesting. He sits just like us too, you know, but he does not think he is doing anything so special. This is why I love Suzuki Roshi. A frog also sits like us, but he or she has no idea of Zazen. If something annoys the frog will make a face. If something comes along to eat, the frog will snap it up and eat it. Actually, that is our Zazen. No special thing. Just here, just this, just present. And he says, here's a kind of a frog koan. Basho was a famous Zen master, disciple of Nangaku. Again, more disciples and more all of this stuff. Nangaku was one of the sixth ancestors' disciples, and one day Basho was sitting practicing Zazen. And Nangaku, Suzuki Roshi says, saw him sitting like a great mountain or like a frog. Isn't that great? I love that because often in Zen it's like sit like a mountain. I mean, I don't say that, so you may not know that, but there's a whole thing on like sit like a mountain. But Suzuki Roshi says he's sitting like a mountain or like a frog. I mean, they're just completely synonymous for him. It just changes the whole. I don't know. I like the idea of sitting like a frog. But mountains are good too. And then Gaku asked, "What are you doing?" And Basho said, "I am practicing Zazen." Nangaku said, "Why are you practicing Zazen?" "Well, I want to attain enlightenment. I want to be a Buddha." And do you know what Basho did? He picked up a tile. And Nangaku picked up a tile and he started to polish it. Basho said, "What are you doing?" Nangaku said, "I want to make this tile into a jewel." How is it possible to make a tile a jewel? How is it possible to become a Buddha by practicing Zazen? Nangaku replied, "Do you want to attain Buddhahood? There is no Buddhahood besides your ordinary mind. It's just this, just things as it is." It's funny, it's sweet. It's funny because we're funny, because we're all trying so hard and we all really try really hard to be good people. Please, try to be a Buddha, but also know what you're doing. And then just show up and pay attention to your life and your mind and your heart. Want to change the country to what you think the country is inherently the heart of who we are, and let's be it. Let's help each other be it. And in the doing of it, let's help everybody, all of us, remember and find out what's true. What's our deepest heart? There is no Buddhahood besides your ordinary mind. Meaning, this is Suzuki Roshi, whatever you do, that is Zazen. Stop thinking you're doing something so special. And he goes on to talk about true Zazen is beyond being in bed or sitting in the Zendo. If you think your partner is in bed, that is Zazen. If you think I'm sitting here and my spouse is in bed, then even though you were sitting here in a cross-legged position, that is not true Zazen. Stop thinking you're doing something special and that the other person who's in bed, that they're not doing their perfect Zazen. It's really a different way, isn't it? You should be like a frog, always. That is true Zazen. It's like give yourself and the whole world a break. Soften your eyes and ears. Dogen said, he commented on this koan, and he said, when Basho becomes Basho, his Zazen becomes true Zazen, and Zen becomes Zen. You know the phrase, when you become you, Zen becomes Zen? It's like, what is that? When you are you, Zen is Zen. We're not polishing you up to make you into some special idea, idealized of who you think you are. It's like when Rachel is just completely Rachel. It's like, wow. And when Lainey's just Lainey, it's like, wow. Everything. Wow. That's the Sandokai. That's the harmony of the manyness and the oneness, is everybody's a Buddha, waking up to be a Buddha. That's the heart of the Lotus Sutra. And we forget, right? We're all more than a little deluded. So here's another one. This is all Suzuki Roshi's chaining these together. This is What is true Zazen? When you become you. When you are you, then no matter what you do, that is Zazen. Zuikan was a Zen master who always used to address himself. Zuikan, he would call, and then he would answer, yes. Zuikan, yes. And whenever he lost himself, he would address himself. Zuikan, yes. We could highly recommend this practice for at least the next 4 years. Chris? Yes. Wander around a little here, a little anger here, a little, be with what is, but be in the center of it. Suzuki Roshi says, because you lose yourself in your problem will be a problem for you. If you do not lose yourself, then even though you have difficulty, there is actually no problem whatsoever. And we're just here. Yes? Yes? You just sit in the midst of the problem. When you are part of the problem, or when the problem is a part of you, there is no problem. Because you are the problem yourself. The problem is you yourself. If this is so, there is no problem. When you start to wander about in some delusion, which is something apart from you yourself, I'm sure we never do that. Study this. You're wandering around in some delusion. I'm sure you will have opportunities to study this today as you sit. Like, where was I the last 10 minutes? Well, I was wandering around in some problem, and it's just like, come back. It's an act of trust and faith, actually. It's an act of trust and faith and taking refuge in the whole world and in the one-heartedness of everything. Once you are in the midst of delusion, there is no end to delusion, and you will be, once you are in the midst of following it, there's no end to it, and you will be involved in deluded ideas one after another. Just to live is actually to live in problems. To solve the problem is to be a part of it and be one with it. He says someplace else it is something like the problems that you have today, and everybody was waiting for him to tell them what to do and make them all go away. And he said, are the problems that you'll have for the rest of your life. And everybody just laughed. All my ancient twisted karma, from beginningless greed, hate, and delusion. We are human beings, and we are Buddhas, and it's perfect. Let's just be here and help each other being here. When you do not practice, there is other, and there is yourself. There is shiny you and deluded you. And all your judgments about it. Sometimes I think, do you ever think about how much energy would be freed up if you didn't go around blaming yourself and other people? I mean, just think about it. If you're talking about life, I mean, it's fine, study it, because you're studying it for everybody, but let's not waste this life. If you yourself have true practice, then everything else is practicing our way at the same time. As you practice, everything aligns. And then you will have the practice of a frog. Suzuki Roshi says again, there is no Buddhahood besides your ordinary mind. Don't set up standards of your own. You'll see, the more we chant the Sandokai, these little phrases in there are all pointing at exactly just this. This is it. This is Buddha's compassion and luminous mirror-like wisdom. This is it. just to give ourselves to it. Letting the world come close. So much happens because we're fighting, we're this tension of, I want it, I don't want it. The absurdity and the beauty and the wonder of it all. Dogen says, everything is a great round mirror. All Buddhas are a great round mirror, boundless, not limited to inside, outside. The only way through is through, just this. You're not going to get out of this to someplace else. That's just going to create more suffering. Dogen says, just not knowing. Not knowing is a straightforward, bare heart. It is bright and clear, not seeing. What a beautiful encouragement.
Yeah.
Not knowing is a straightforward, bare heart. I mean, I don't know what that is. I don't know how to live it. But it's like, that's how I want to live. Sit through the skin you were born in. So everything has some virtue for itself. No things are the same. There's nothing to compare you with. You have your own value. And everything has absolute value. The Buddha is always here. The Buddha has no fixed form. And Dogen says those who have the capacity of genuine trust can enter this realm. It is trust. It is just moment after moment. Yes, I will. Don't know. It's not wishy-washy. It's very grounded. Very embodied. And it's wide open. Everything has its own Dharma position. Immersed, wholehearted, complete, alive, a dynamic tension of the dance between perfection and delusion. We are polishing and being polished. We are all tiles. I love another one of Dogen's things is the more mud, the bigger the Buddha. I love that. The more mud, the bigger the Buddha. Oh, what a great muddy Buddha. And Thich Nhat Hanh, the lotus in the mud. No mud, no lotus. Each thing experiencing life, completely expressing and sharing their life. A blue jay doesn't hold back from being a blue jay. Just this, just being together, more and more fully expressing our caring and our love for each other and for the world. With some great sense of compassion of, wow, we are all in the same boat. You got yours, I got mine, karma. What an amazing thing, the forms we got, the ideas we got, the karma we got, it's like, what an amazing thing that, and bamboo is just completely bamboo. Just keep coming back. Want to save the world? It's not going to happen anyplace but right here. And that includes the whole world. And please do something. I'm not saying in any way not to do something, but where and how we respond, that's the practice. So at the very end of the Sandokai, practice is not a matter of near or far. But if you are confused, mountains and rivers block your way. Some part of me, because I think in cartoons, is like, it's like you keep trying to go through a mountain, or it's like you just keep hitting the same wall, which is why when you sit Zen, you face the wall. It's like all these ideas, well, surely I'll get through now. I think I got it. What did you get? I respectfully urge you who study the mystery, do not pass your days and nights in vain. And then Suzuki Roshi says, I think this is the final lecture. When you do something with a purpose based on some evaluation of what is useful or useless, good or bad, more or less valuable, your understanding is not perfect. If you do things that need to be done regardless of whether the results are good or bad, successful or unsuccessful, that is real practice. That is practice. That is continuous practice. If you do things that need to be done regardless of whether the results are good or bad, don't set up standards on your own. Successful or unsuccessful, that is real practice. If you do things not because of Buddha or truth or yourself or others, but for the things themselves, that is the true way. Just take care of what's in front of you. It will reveal the next moment. And if we're taking care of what's in front of us, that is taking care of everything. And he reiterates, in China, in Sekito, Shitao, who wrote the Sandokai's time, Zen Buddhism was very polemical. In the background of the teaching, there was always some controversy. There were many schools of Zen, and they were often lost in dispute. And because they were involved in ideas of right and wrong teaching, or traditional or heretical teaching, they lost the main point of practice. So Sekito, Shito, said, don't spend your time in vain. Don't sacrifice actual practice for idealistic practice. Stop setting yourself up against yourself. Don't be caught in some idea. Some selfish understanding of the practice or teaching is to follow our practice in the right way. This is sometimes called tile polishing practice. Usually people will polish a mirror. If someone starts to polish a tile, you will laugh at them. But polishing a tile makes it shine. Someone may say, oh, this is just a tile. It can't be a mirror. That is the practice of those who give up easily. They do not realize that a tile is valuable, sometimes more valuable than a mirror. No one can afford to make a roof of mirrors. Tiles are very good for making roofs, just as a mirror is important for looking at yourself. Let's do tile polishing practice. Chris? Yes? I was telling someone this recently. I never wanted to be ordained. Who knows how we get into anything we get into. But I realized Norman Fisher, who ordained me, offered me tile polishing practice. Humility, seeing each person as Buddha, and being of service. That's tile polishing practice. Bodhisattva vows are tile polishing practice, saving and being saved, ending delusions and being ended by. Buddhas are deluded. They just know they're deluded. That's all. It's not what we think. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. I vow to be entered by life, moment after moment, in this deep mutuality of life. Buddha's way is unsurpassable. I vow to become it. I vow to practice humility, humbleness. Humble, the root word is earth. Come down to earth. Being of service. How can I be of help? And then listening, because it's often our ideas of what we think is helpful is just one more projection that you're making me uncomfortable, and I wish I could shine you up so that you could make my life more comfortable. Being of service and seeing each person as Buddha, which is not to ignore what we see in front of us, which is not to help to, this isn't denial, or as Pema Chodron says, stupid compassion. It's not what we're talking about here. This is often awkward and uncomfortable. Called alive. And I think and remember more and more that when Ananda said, Buddha, are good spiritual friends a part of the path? And Ananda and Buddha is said to have responded, Ananda, good spiritual friends are the whole of the path. And we might add that don't go around looking for idealized, shiny spiritual friends that are just going to make you comfortable all the time. It's just like, I mean, we're so funny, right? I mean, funny and sad, and then you look at the world and you think, ay, ay, ay. Just keep coming, sit like a frog, and then see what happens next. So thank you for wandering around in the world of Zen and Sandokai and not knowing is most intimate. Nobody knows. Don't be dumb. Know what you know, and then see what's here the next moment, because the whole world is asking this of us. We are bound to save all beings. Absolutely, it's just not what you think. So please, enjoy sitting like a frog for the rest of your day and the rest of your life. If nothing else, it will occasionally make you laugh or cry. Okay.
Beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. Buddha's way is unsurpassable. I vow to become it.
I'll stand up and bow.